And thank you everyone, and welcome to the latest online event here at the University of California, Merced. My name is Juan Villegas, and I'm the Associate Director for the Office of Undergraduate Admissions. And once again, we're here with you getting ready to kick off this great event. We're going to be talking about how to afford an education at the University of California. So I am glad that you're joining us here tonight. And thank you so much for taking some time out of your evening. Let me go ahead and give you a couple of quick Zoom reminders before we get started. If you need to adjust your audio settings, you can do that in the lower left corner of your screen. And if you at any time you would like to zoom in into your screen in just a little bit more, you can always click on view options in the upper portion of your Zoom. We would also be able to have the Q&A option available towards the end of this presentation. In the meantime, if you have a very pressing question, you could always drop that into the chat and we will get to that at the end. Also, at the end of the presentation, you will be able once again to click on the Q&A button and we will be able to answer some of those live. And if you like this presentation so much, we would also have this presentation as we are recording it, and it will be on demand later on. So once again, my name is Juan Villegas, and tonight we're talking about how to afford an education at the University of California. And we have a fantastic guest here with us today, our very own Interim Director of Financial Aid and Scholarships, Heather Nardello. So thank you very much, Heather, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Juan. So let me just quickly go over the agenda for tonight. So I'm going to talk about the cost to attend the University of California, Merced. I'm going to cover different kinds of financial aid and what that means for all of you. I'm going to go through the application process and give you some tips and tricks on that. And then we'll go through some tips about just finishing out that process through the next few months. All right, so let me talk about the cost.
All right.
So you may or may not be familiar with the concept of the cost of attendance, but for any schools that you're going to apply to, including UC Merced, we use something that's called the cost of attendance. That is made up of a number of different items that you might experience the cost of paying: tuition fees, room and board, housing, meals, personal expenses, rent or utilities for living off campus. But we go on to categorize that in a way that I think is maybe a little bit more understandable, which is really in two groups. And those groups are what we would call direct costs or indirect costs. Direct costs are things that you're going to pay directly to UC Merced to attend. So those are going to be your tuition and fees. And so all students are going to pay that. So everybody's going to have that as a direct cost. And then if you live on campus, you're going to pay UC Merced for your housing, your room, and your meals. You'll also have indirect costs. So these are things, expenses that you will have for things that you need to purchase to help pay for your education, but they're not things that we are going to bill you for at UC Merced. And so the costs and the amount of those, what you spend on those items will vary student by student, but those are things like transportation, books and supplies, which will adjust based off of what courses you're taking each semester, your personal expenses, and you have a bit of control there. What you spend on personal expenses, which is things like toilet paper, toothpaste, deodorant, maybe going to the movies with your friends, you have some control over what you spend on personal expenses. And then, of course, if you're living off campus, that would include rent, groceries, and utilities. Next slide. And we know that walking into a four-year education or even a two-year education at UC Merced can be a little bit uneasy because you don't know exactly what that's going to cost for that 4 years or your 2 years. And so the University of California implemented what's called the UC Tuition Stability Plan. And what this does is it actually locks in the rate for your system-wide tuition and student service fees for up to 6 years. So if you're entering as a first-year student, you'll know exactly what you're going to pay in tuition and student service fees for the 6 years that it might take you to finish your bachelor's degree, because you can receive that guaranteed amount for up to 6 years, or when you graduate, whatever comes first. This creates some stability in those direct costs so that you know what you will pay for the time it takes to complete your degree. Next slide. The University of California also has a financial aid calculator. So you have a sense now of kind of what those costs will look like. We have some information on our website for what the 24-25 costs are. The cost of attendance for 25-26 won't be available until early next year, but you can get a sense of what those costs are now. But then we have this calculator that you can use that will give you an estimate of what your financial aid will look like, based off of those costs and based off of some information that you provide in that calculator. It'll help you get a kind of a clear answer of not only what the costs are, but what your financial aid will be. You'll need some information, so you'll have to gather some financial records. They're the same kinds of records that you'll need to complete the financial aid application, either the FAFSA or the CATA. But once you get that together, then you can fill this out and it'll give you an estimate ahead of when you'll get your financial aid, specific financial aid award package from UC Merced. So what is financial aid? We commonly hear people misunderstand all of the different kinds of awards that students might receive to help them pay for their education. And so very simply, we define financial aid as money that's either given, paid, or loaned to help you cover the costs of education. So it might include grant aid, which we define as grants and scholarships, or it might include self-help, which are awards that you might either need to work to earn, or you might need to borrow and have to repay later. So kind of digging into that a little bit deeper, for the different types of financial aid, we also receive and help coordinate for you a number of different types of or different programs under each type of aid. So under the category of gift aid, we coordinate resources from the federal government, the state government, and from UC Merced, and that includes the federal Pell Grant program. It includes the state programs, which are the Cal Grant and the Middle Class Scholarship. And then institutionally at UC Merced, we also have a grant program called our Bobcat Grant, and then we have institutional scholarships that have a variety of dollar amounts and criteria. Under the self-help aid category, we also coordinate programs from both the federal government and the state government. From the state of California, we have students that are eligible for the California Dream Loan, and then from the federal government, we help coordinate the work-study program on campus, student loans, and parent loans. Another program that the University of California has that creates some stability in the costs and helps support our students is our UC Blue and Gold Opportunity Plan, which is really, I think, best defined as a promise. It's a guarantee that the University of California, so UC Merced, will provide enough free money to cover your in-state tuition and fee costs if you meet the criteria. So students that are eligible for this have a family income that's less than 80,000. They're eligible for financial aid. What I think sometimes gets misunderstood with this program is you may not actually see an award in your financial aid award package called the Blue and Gold Opportunity Plan. Because it's that promise that you'll have enough free money, we coordinate the eligibility for it with all of the resources that you're receiving. So you might be eligible for a Cal Grant. In California, the Cal Grant program covers your in-state tuition and fees. You might receive a Bobcat grant or a Pell Grant or a combination of those things, and that's how we help fulfill that promise, that you'll have those costs covered. New in the last few years is also our UC Native American Opportunity Plan. It's very similar and mirrors the Blue and Gold Opportunity Plan, but it's specifically for California resident students that are enrolled or have membership in a federally recognized tribe. There's no income criteria tied to this one, so it's slightly different, and you don't actually need to fill out a financial aid application to be eligible. Because we don't necessarily know who meets the eligibility criteria, we will use information that you provide on the undergraduate admission application, and we will let you know that we think you may be eligible and provide information for how you can verify your eligibility. If you don't hear from us in the spring asking you to submit the verification documents, please feel free to reach out to us. We do the best we can with the information that you've provided, but that doesn't mean that you can't self-identify to us that you may be eligible. And then we'll help walk you through the process and allow you to submit the documentation if you weren't initially identified. Okay, so we've talked about costs a little bit. I've given you some resources for how you can understand costs, maybe estimate your financial aid a little bit. We've also talked about the different kinds of financial aid, but the really critical part to this is applying. So in California, we have two different applications. If you are a U.S. citizen or national or an eligible non-citizen, then you can complete the federal application, which is the free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA. You have to have a valid social security number, or like I said, be a US citizen. If you don't meet the criteria to complete a FAFSA application in California, we have the California Dream Act application, or the CATA, which allows non-citizens to apply for financial aid through the state of California. You do have to meet AB 540 criteria. And so I think one of the things that's really important for this application process is that this spring, or late winter, early spring, that you're really responding to any requests for information from our Office of the Registrar or our Office of Admissions about your residency status. Okay, so what do you need in order to apply for the FAFSA? So the FAFSA actually opened on December 1st, and hopefully some of you have already started working on your applications. If you haven't, you will need to complete, it's okay if you haven't, by the way, but you'll need a federal student aid ID, and at least one of your parents who are known as contributors will also need to create a federal student aid ID. That can be done on the studentaid.gov website. It is important that process can be a bit cumbersome. So it's really important that after you as the student complete the ID process and you get a federal student aid ID, that you and your parent coordinate the creation of their ID and the application process, because all of the information that you enter between the two of you needs to be in sync and agree with one another. So you'll also need social security number or an alien registration number and a driver's license. You will potentially need tax returns, but not most people at this point will not need your actual tax returns because you'll be able to use the data transfer process from the IRS to the FAFSA application. And so through the application process, you'll be asked some questions and you will give permission for yours and or your parents, your contributors, to have your information transferred directly to from the IRS. It's a nice process because it's really simplified for you, the data entry and the accuracy of the information. I don't know about you, but tax returns can be very confusing. Understanding what line to look at for particular information can be really challenging. And so this direct transfer of data from the IRS to your application has really helped with that process. What you will need that doesn't get transferred is information about different accounts and assets that need to be reported on the application. So you might need checking or savings information, you might need investment account information, things like that. And then if you have any untaxed income, records of that would be really helpful. Probably the most important piece of information on this slide is when you fill out the FAFSA application, you will be asked what schools you want to receive the application that you complete. You can have up to 20 schools on your FAFSA application. Be sure to add our school code. It's listed there in red, but it's 041271. It's also on our website, and so easy to access later. All right, so if you are, if you know that you don't meet the criteria to complete a FAFSA application, that's okay. We have a process for you in the state of California, which is the California DREAM Act application. In order to complete that application, you'll need a DREAM Act ID, so very similar process. On the website, you will go and create a DREAM Act ID, and your parent or contributor will also need to create that account so that you can complete your application. If you do have an identifier like a social security number or taxpayer ITIN, you may need that as well, or a driver's license and a driver's license. Again, or for DREAM app filers, there is no direct transfer of information from the IRS to the application, so you will need income tax information, W-2s, employment records, things like that. The year that we're reporting information from is 2023 for the 25-26 CATA application. And so you'll need those documents so that you can do that data entry onto your application. If you have any questions through this process and you're not sure where to find what you're looking for, our office, our Students First Center, our one stop on campus, we're always available to assist, to answer questions. We have virtual appointments, so you could hop on a Zoom with us and we can help walk you and your parent through the process if you have any questions. Your high schools often have staff who are equipped to answer these kinds of questions, or if you have one from CalSOAP on your campus, that's also another really good resource. So you'll also need different financial statements or records for assets, checking, savings, asset accounts, things like that. And then again, any records of untaxed income. Okay, so what does the process look like once you complete your financial aid application? So right now, if you're completing a financial aid application in December or January, those applications are either going to go, so for the FAFSA, this is going to go to the federal government, federal student aid. They're going to process your application and they're going to send it to us. We aren't quite in the space yet to start receiving and processing those, but we will be in late January, early February. And so we'll get that application and we will start to put together, we'll start to identify your cost of attendance, and we'll start to put together a financial aid award package for you. It's important, again, that you list all of the schools that you want to get that information. You need to put their school codes on your application so that they get your FAFSA application. And we will use that to coordinate all of the different kinds of financial aid. So we are the kind of the one stop for financial aid for you, meaning that you don't need to talk to federal student aid, to the federal government. You don't need to talk to the state of California or the California Student Aid Commission about your financial aid eligibility. You'll be able to come to UC Merced, and we'll be able to answer any questions you have about eligibility for any of those programs, federal, state, or institutional. It's also important that you complete the FAFSA application. And if your high school, and this is an important question to go back and ask your high school, if your high school does not submit a GPA to the California Student Aid Commission on your behalf, which most schools in California do now, but not all, then you'll also need to complete a GPA verification with the California Student Aid Commission in order to be considered for Cal Grant eligibility. But the California Student Aid Commission will also use this application to determine your eligibility for the Cal Grant program. All right, so very similar for our CATA applicants. The state will process your application. So the California Student Aid Commission will receive your CATA application. They will process it, and then they will send it to us. Same timeline, we'll get it, and we will start processing those in late January, early February. We will use that information to coordinate your aid eligibility between the state program, so the Cal Grant program, middle class scholarship, and then institutional programs as well. Just like FAFSA filers, it's important that you know whether or not your GPA is going to be automatically sent to the California Student Aid Commission, because it's a key factor in Cal Grant eligibility. And so go back to your high school, find out if they're sending it automatically on your behalf. And if they're not, then there's a process through the California Student Aid Commission where you can complete a GPA verification. Okay, so what would we tell you are our top 6 tips about financial aid? You can hit the next slide for me. Thank you. All right, so number 1 is completing the application. The financial aid application, the FAFSA or the CATA, is the key to your financial aid eligibility. I think that it's really important that you complete an application, even if you're not sure what you're eligible for, even if you think you might not be eligible for anything. And anything, meaning most students think that they're not, or some students think they're not going to be eligible for grants and scholarships. I think it's really important that you fill one out anyway. It is not, it doesn't, it's worth the time and energy and effort to complete the application, because you never know when your circumstances might change, and you really don't know at the end of the day what you might be eligible for. And so the 30 minutes, maybe the hour that it takes you to complete the application, I think is well worth it in the long run. So the application, like I mentioned earlier, opened on December 1st. The priority deadline in the state of California is March 3rd. I really, really, really strongly urge you to complete the application by March 3rd. This will allow you to be considered for all aid that's available to you. It's important for Cal Grant eligibility. It's important for middle class scholarship eligibility. It's really important for institutional financial aid. So to be considered eligible for our grants and scholarships at UC Merced, it's important that you submit by that deadline. There are a lot of workshops being conducted throughout the state of California over the next few months. And so Cash for College is a great place for you to find out about workshops. If maybe there aren't any happening at your high school, there might be some happening at a local community college, or maybe another UC or CSU campus. But the Cash for College website will have a comprehensive list of what's available to you. And just a reminder, because this is a common misconception or misunderstanding, financial aid is an annual process. So you will need to complete a FAFSA or a CATA every year while you're a student at UC Merced. So just important to start to remember that that's kind of a thing you do every time, every fall about this time. All right, so our second tip is, and this kind of is a continuation of what I was just sharing, but is that we do have processes that will enable us to consider changes in your family situation. So for fall of 25, we'll be using income information from the tax year or calendar year of 2023. We realize that that's a whole year and a half of time that has gone by, and lots of people's situations have changed. And we want to support you and account for that. And so if you have experienced some change in your information between 2023 and 2025, we have some processes where you can tell us about that. And so our special circumstance appeal process is a way for you to tell us that you've had your family has experienced some change or some financial impact that wasn't expected. And so these are just some examples, but that appeal process is there's information available on our website, or again, you can call or email anytime and we can provide additional information about what that process looks like. All right, so our third tip is to apply to multiple schools. Hopefully you've done that because I think that probably the majority of application periods have passed for institutions, but it's not a bad idea to apply to multiple schools. Of course, we hope that you pick UC Merced because we think that this is a really awesome place. I think this is a really awesome place, and I think that you would be happy here, and I hope that you all join us. Um, the second piece to that is don't let the initial sticker price turn you away. Um, Kind of what I was sharing at the beginning is that breakdown of costs. And it's real easy to look at that initial sticker price because our cost of attendance for an on-campus student, that total cost of attendance that incorporates all of the different expenses you might have, is over $40,000. The net price that students pay, which is that cost of attendance minus any free money that they're getting, is much, much lower for most of our students. In fact, for most students, it's under $20,000 a year. And so really evaluate the financial aid offers that you've received so that you can understand what that net price is and that you can compare offers between different schools. This is just going into that net price comparison just a little bit more, and it's an example of UC Merced in comparison to a sample CSU campus. Um, I think that people initially, the initial assumption is that CSUs are less expensive than UCs, and they might be when you're comparing one year against another year. Although in this example, you can see that on average, our financial aid award packages reduce that net price, right? That total cost of attendance minus any free money, that gift aid that a student's receiving, that our net price ends up being lower than your average CSU campus. The other thing to keep in mind is that students that attend CSUs typically take an average of 5 or more years to complete their degree, whereas at the University of California, students take on average about 4 years. So even if the cost was slightly more per year over 4 years versus 5 years, you're gonna that net price is gonna be lower. All right, so tip number 4. And something I wanted to share a little more about is our scholarships at UC Merced. So applying for scholarships is an important part of the financial aid process. At UC Merced, there's no additional application for students who are applying for admission. So we use your admission application along with your financial aid application, so either your FAFSA or your CATA, to consider you for all of the scholarships, all of the UC Merced scholarships that we administer. It's important that you, if you're applying for more than just scholarships at UC Merced, or you want to apply for more than just scholarships at UC Merced, that you think about prioritizing your efforts. And then a really awesome resource is usually your high school. So if it's early enough in the process, I would check in with your high school and find out if there is a scholarship. If there is a scholarship application for your high school, that's probably one of the largest sources of outside scholarship funding that we receive is students who bring in scholarships that they received through their high schools as first year students. Just be careful of scams that are out there. You should never pay to apply for a scholarship. You should never provide your social security number or date of birth. So just be leery of any applications that are asking for those kinds of personal details. And then we do need to coordinate any outside scholarships that you receive. So if you receive a scholarship through your high school or some outside agency, just let us know so that we can incorporate that into your financial aid award package. A little bit more about scholarships. At UC Merced, we have both merit or academic scholarships and need-based scholarships. So merit, we only consider your academic performance and maybe talents or abilities, things like that. Need-based scholarships, it will include a financial component. So students need to demonstrate financial need. And they will always have an academic performance piece as well. And then we do have some athletic financial aid on campus, our athletic scholarship program, which has greatly expanded this year now that we are moving into our, now that we're moving into the NC2A. All right, and then tip number 5. I talked earlier about the definition of what financial aid is, and financial aid does include loans and work opportunities. So every student that applies to UC Merced will receive some kind of a loan offer in their financial aid award package. Lots of students will also receive work study as part of their financial aid award package. You are under no obligation to borrow those loans. It's just another way to help you and your family afford the cost. And for some students, that's the only way that they can afford the cost. Student loans do have to be paid back, but the loan program that we administer here is a federal loan program, and it's a very generous and it's a good loan program in the grand scheme of loans. It does have low interest, and it doesn't have to be paid back until 6 months after students graduate, complete their degree. All right. And tip number 6 is to apply and pay attention to deadlines. So financial aid funds are limited, not just at UC Merced, but at most public institutions. And so being sure that you apply by the priority deadline of March 3rd is really important to ensuring that you are considered for all of the financial aid that we have available to students. In addition to the application deadline, you may have a deadline for when you need to submit supplemental documents or supporting information. And so really paying attention to those deadlines is going to be critical to ensuring that you have the most robust financial aid package that we could possibly give you. We do, yes. And so meeting those deadlines, which is typically going to be March 3rd and June 1st each year, is going to be really important. All right. So before I close out and we open it up for questions, I did just want to provide a little bit of additional information on the timeline for financial aid information at UC Merced specifically. So we intend to start disseminating financial aid award information to students who we have received applications for, so FAFSA or ACATA, and you've been admitted to UC Merced. We will start to disseminate the financial aid award information in early February. That's an earlier timeline for us this year. We're excited about getting this information out to students as early as possible. Don't worry if you are a student who, for some reason, maybe you're having some challenges with your financial aid application, or maybe for some reason you and your parents can't get it submitted now or in January, and you end up waiting until March 3rd. That does not change that eligibility. You will be still considered for all financial aid that we administer at UC Merced as long as you meet that March 3rd deadline. And we will continue to send out and provide financial aid award information all spring long. So I encourage you to apply early, but if you can't apply prior to March 3rd, that's okay. You're not going to miss out. So that's it for me. But I think we're going to open it up for questions. Is that
That
correct?
will be correct. So we might still have a couple of questions. And I know that through your presentations, we have had our advisors taking a look. So so basically, there's a question that says, can I stock up multiple programs like FAFSA and the SSC, etc.? So what I'm thinking it might be um, the Dream Scholarship, or can they stock up on those programs? Or even I can make it differently, like can you get your FAFSA and then stock up on other scholarships?
Yeah, well, so the FAFSA and the CATA are the application, but we are going to use that information to coordinate and put together a comprehensive financial aid package that includes all federal, state, and institutional financial aid. So there's nothing additional that you need to do for us to consider you for all of the different kinds. So all of the grants and scholarships and all of the loan and work opportunities that you're eligible for, we're going to put that together. And so in that financial aid package that we send out, it's going to include grants, scholarships, potentially. Not all students are awarded scholarships, but and not all students are awarded grants. But whatever the student is eligible for based off of their application, so their FAFSA or the CATA, we're going to coordinate that all and put it together in one package and send it out to the student all at the same time.
Okay, so we have another question regarding the special circumstances for financial aid appeals. Are those only confined to changes in financial situations, or can it also apply to situations that have continued over the past few years?
I mean, it really kind of depends. So it's special circumstances are called special circumstances because there's really no two situations that are exactly identical. And so if your family has experienced some kind of hardship that you want to ensure that we take into consideration when we're evaluating your eligibility for financial aid, I would suggest that you reach out to us and talk to us about it so that we can guide you through the process. And special circumstance appeal might be the route to go. Or we might tell you that based off of what you've given us and what you're telling us that we've already considered whatever circumstance is occurring. Um, but there's not a one size fits all process for special circumstances. And so I really encourage students and families to have a conversation with us so we can help guide through the process.
Great, thank you. And there's another question that says, do we waive in-state tuition for veteran dependents?
Do we waive in-state tuition? We do not have a program that waives in-state tuition for veteran dependents. There is a program through the state of California. It's the CalVet fee waiver. And so where you would need to talk to your local Veteran Affairs office about whether or not you meet the eligibility for the CalVet fee waiver. But if you do, that is a waiver of in-state tuition and student service fees.
Correct. If I may add, remember UC Merced is the only yellow ribbon of the University of California, so you might want to look into that as well. So thank you for that, Heather. And also, should I still apply for FAFSA already, even if my parents are undocumented?
If you are a documented person, yes. That is that is an option for you. And so you can complete the application.
And then there's another great question that says, do outside scholarships like as high school reduce the financial aid award from the UC?
It does, but what we do is we replace any loan and work first initially, that's in your financial aid package. So it's always our goal to get you the most beneficial financial aid award package that we can. And so we're not going to take away, when we can, we're not going to take away any grant or scholarship that we've given you. Our first option is usually to replace loan and work. But every situation is different. And so if you want a specific answer, once we start awarding financial aid and you get your financial aid award package and you have questions, I really encourage you, one, don't fall into the trap of comparing with your friends. I think that it never works out the way we think it's going to. If you have questions, reach out to us so that we can walk you through what you're eligible for and how we got there, and if there's options for you.
Sounds great. And then there's another question that is a little bit similar than the previous one, but are you allowed to apply for both FAFSA and CATA if you don't know which one you belong to?
No, you can only complete one application. If you're unsure, I would suggest that you reach out to us. We're more than happy to help you figure out which is the appropriate application for you. You may also, there's information on our website that might help as well. But please, please, please feel free to reach out. And I didn't say it, but on this page that's on the screen is our contact information. So at UC Merced, we have a one-stop center that is your initial contact for all questions about admissions and financial aid. And this is the phone number and the website for our Students First Center. They're awesome and they can answer many, many, many questions that you have about financial aid. And if they can't, they will connect you with an expert in our office.
And another question, are there any specific programs, scholarships, and grants for former foster youth?
There is a program through the state of California called the Chafee Grant Program, and you can look into whether or not you meet the qualifications for that. You may already have a sense, but that's the only program that I'm familiar with that is specifically for former foster youth.
Mm-hmm. And then there's another one that I really like, and probably right after you, I might say something because it says, you mentioned that financial aid information will be released for admitted students in February. That means students will know their admission decisions by February then?
Do you want me to say it? Do you want
Well,
to say it?
well, let me put it this way. I think UC Merced keeps surprising not only the state of California, but probably many outside. All I can say is to stay tuned to your emails because we might surprise you and your decisions may be available before February. So what I say is keep in tune with your emails. Like I said, admissions is usually on a rolling basis. So I'll say stay tuned. For some might be Christmas gifts, or some might be the three wise kings, if you celebrate that, like, so once again, we have been surprising people in the state of California and the nation. So with that being said, if you get a yes, then Heather might tell you that also how much you're gonna be getting as early as February. But I'd say stay tuned to your emails. Anything else, Heather?
No, I think that's a great answer. And we will award financial aid on a rolling basis all spring long. So starting in early February and all the way through the SIR deadlines and through the summer.
Yes. And they put it on the chat. But remember, in order for you to know if you're receiving financial aid, you have to apply first. So if you want to be the first ones to know if you're going to get financial aid, you should be some of the first ones also to submit your FAFSA or your CATA. Here's another question that says, can students' loans slash financial aid cover housing, even for off-campus housing, or is it only for on-campus housing?
No, so good question. Housing and meals, an average cost is included in the total cost of attendance that we use to determine financial aid eligibility. So for students who are living off campus or maybe even living at home with family or relatives, we do include the cost of housing and meals in your cost of attendance, and we do award financial aid to assist with those costs because we know that that's a cost that you're going to have to pay, that you're going to have to go to school, whether you live on campus or off campus. So it's included, and you will receive financial aid to help cover it.
Great. And then, so we have a parent that says that one of the parents and the son completed their FAFSA. If the husband and the parent file jointly, but only one of the parents created a login for contributors, does that mean that they made a mistake? Meaning only one parent created the login, but not both. Will they both need to create it or just one?
No, so there is, if you're having a challenge trying to figure out parents and information, they do have some really good information on the FAFSA website. But it comes down to tax filing status and whether or not one or both parents have to have an FSA ID. If your tax filing status is married filing jointly, then no, only one of the two parents has to have an FSA ID account because you can give permission for the information to be shared from the IRS. If the tax filing status for the parents is married filing separately, or maybe one is head of household, or both are head of household, because that happens sometimes, then both parents will have to create an FSA ID account because it comes down to having to give permission to the IRS to share that information. So I hope that helps clarify.
Okay. So here's another question. Would a refugee go into the FAFSA or CATA citizenship category?
Um, it depends. Likely, it's possible that you can that you're eligible to complete a FAFSA, but detailed information about the variety of eligible non-citizen statuses that can complete a FAFSA application is available on the studentaid.gov website. And I would encourage you to find your particular situation and read through that criteria. Again, some of these questions are very complex and they don't have a simple, straightforward answer that I can give you all right now. And so if you're struggling to figure out the answer, I really do encourage you to reach out to us so that we can help walk you through the process. We are working on scheduling we're hoping to schedule at least one Zoom event in January and February to assist with the application processes. So watch for information to come out from the admissions office about those opportunities for us to help you if you're still having challenges with your applications.
And I strongly suggest you to do that, the one-on-one, because this is also a conversation that you may have with your parents. Because in order for you to be a refugee, or also there's another question with similar question about asylees, that doesn't mean you just apply. You have to receive the designation of. So once again, there's many things that our experts might be able to help you on that one case by case scenarios. And like I said, even if they don't have it, then most likely we'll be able to put you in contact with someone that would be able to answer those. So the answer is, conversations was just the application, or you have received the designation as such. So another thing here that I said is, oh, so here's for admissions. Do you know when the decisions for admissions for the SJB Prime Plus program is? And probably this is for if we have someone else that might be able to answer that. But let me go and talk about something else, and we'll go back to that one. Will my 509 plan affect my scholarship grant?
Can you say that again, Juan?
Yes. Will my 509 plan affect my scholarship grant?
Which plan?
They said a 5
Oh,
09, but
oh, I think they're probably talking about a 529. So 529 is an educational savings account.
yeah.
Um, and it does not, we take it into consideration as a resource, but again, we're going to impact you in the least way we can, meaning that we're first going to replace loans and work study opportunities where we can. So, but it really depends on the value of the 529 payment, how much you're using to assist with your costs. But again, as we get closer to into the spring and summer, as we get closer to the fall semester, we can probably answer questions like that more specifically, depending on at that point what you know about the payment.
Okay, so we have another one that says, is there a difference in loans between the parents and the students?
Yes. Student loans, they're the only eligibility criteria is that students have to be eligible to complete a FAFSA application for federal student loans. Um, for the Parent Plus loan for educational expenses, it's a credit-based loan. And so parents will have to apply and be approved through that process. That said, the approval process for the Parent Plus loan credit piece is not your typical credit-based loan approval process, meaning that more parents are typically eligible than like, let's say, maybe the criteria for a mortgage or a personal loan. So the criteria is more lenient than some of your other standard credit-based loans. Um, probably the other big distinction between the parent loan and the student loan is that, well, two distinctions. One is that the amount students can borrow is capped and limited by the federal government. There are specific amounts that students can borrow. Dependent students, it's less than an independent student, but even for independent students, it's capped each year, and then a total aggregate limit that they can borrow. For parents, there's no cap on the amount that can be borrowed, other than you can't borrow more than the student's cost of attendance. And then the other significant probably difference between the two loans is that students have until 6 months after they graduate before they have to begin repayment, and parents can. The standard process is that parents will go into repayment after the loan disperses each academic year. but parents can choose to defer payments until after their students complete their degree. Most of the things we've touched on tonight are on our website as well. So if you don't remember what I say later or you have questions, our website is also a really great resource. So financialaid.ucmerced.edu is a really great resource for all of this information as well.
Great. And I think we are towards the end of our presentation, but I know that there is a couple of you that are either out of state or even international students. I will encourage you to also visit our financial aid website because you might be able to find out more information about some unique opportunities that exist at UC Merced. And like I said, we also are full of surprises because for transfer students, and I know we have a couple of you here, we just want to say that the applications for admissions at UC Merced, we are one of the campuses that have extended our deadline for transfer applications all the way to January 15. So make sure that if you know someone or you're still are struggling to get your application in and you're a transfer student, you could go ahead and still work on that or even submit it as well. So once again, thank you very much, Heather, for all of your help and all of your expertise. And I just want to thank everyone who joined us today. And once again, this recorded webinar will be available within a couple of days on our website. So once again, thank you, everyone. Thank you to our panelists and everyone that has been assisting with all the questions. Have a great evening.
Don't forget to apply.